कृपा। ओम कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। सद्गुरु भगवान की जय। सच्चिदानंद भगवान की जय। कृष्ण पर भगवान की जय। गीता माता की जय। हरि ओम। We are discussing Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, and yesterday we saw 54th sloka. Arjuna asked Lord Krishna, "O Krishna, what is the description of him who has a steady wisdom and is merged in the superconsciousness state? How does one of steady wisdom speak? How does he sit? And how does he walk?" You see, Arjuna's motive was to understand its steadiness. Is it only mental steadiness or speech-wise? Speech also should be steadied. Does he speak or not? And body-wise, the senses, do they work or not? So in this way, he wanted to know. Sthitadhihi kim prabhaseta kim asita. How does he sit? Brajeta kim. How does he walk? does do the senses of a wise man work, or they keep quiet? Sri Bhagavan uvacha prajahati jada kaman sarvan parthamanogatan atmanev atmana tushta siddha prajñastadochyate. The blessed Lord said, when a man completely casts off, O Arjuna, all the desires of the mind and is satisfied in the self by the self, then is he said to be one of steady wisdom. Man of steady wisdom means all his senses are withdrawn from the sense objects. Okay? What do you mean by withdrawal from the sense objects? This point should be clearly understood. Matra sparsastu kaunteya sitoshna sukha dukkadaha agama paino nityam tam titikshasva bharata. Give up the perception, he said, because if you go on repeating the process of perception again and again, naturally there will be some kind of attachment towards the sense objects, by repetition. So now, what will happen if you repeat it again and again? The attachment has to rise up. That is the consequence. But if you somehow or other, if you don't want the result of the action, then there is less chance of attachment. You don't want to enjoy it. Of course, they will come or not, that is different question. But you have no choice in enjoyment of the result of association. And you have already practiced forbearance, bearing insult, injury, and pain and pleasure, sukhe dukhe samhe kritva, labha labho jaya jayo. He has already given us. Don't be perturbed by pairs of opposites. Try to bear it and try to overcome it by titiksha, by forbearance. So now if you have attained that, there is no chance of attachment because you have no choice for the result of the actions. Now, in this continuation, he says, if the senses perceive the objects without any intention, without any purpose, without any desire for enjoyment of its results, so let them perceive it or not, what does it matter to you? So that is called the real withdrawal of the mind. Withdrawal of the mind and senses, just like a tortoise, when it withdraws its limbs from outside and it keeps it steady inside the body, it has got no danger. So this is Uparati in the yogic steps, 8 steps of Raja Yoga. There it is explained. You have to withdraw the mind from the sense objects and center it on the self. So now you have done it, your mind is established on the self. So you have become a wise man, you have realized the soul. Okay, self. Now, if at all the senses do something, it has got no influence over you. Because there cannot be any attachment, there cannot be any enjoyment of result of your association with the sense objects. So if at all it comes by the way, it has no effect on you. So this will be the condition of a realized soul. What he does, let us see. What does Krishna say? The Blessed Lord said, when a man completely casts off, O Arjuna, all the desires of the mind, desires are not there, completely rooted out, and is satisfied in the self by the self. The doer is the self now, because the identity also is lost. Ego is lost. So, what happens to the soul? in this condition, he is satisfied, he is contented. Further we shall see contentment. Santosamrita chiptanam jasukham santa chetasam. We shall see it ahead. Contentment is the greatest positive quality of the mind. When contentment is there, it will not go for the sense objects. And what is contentment? The feeling of completeness within itself. There is no any need, fullness, sense of totality, sense of not lacking anything. That is perfection, completeness. That is called contentment. He is satisfied. He has no need anymore. In this condition, where he is satisfied, he is always steadily abiding in the self. So, the self is satisfied with the self. And it is said, the bliss of the self obtained from contentment and equanimity of the ID. The body, senses, mind, everything. Now there is no need, there is no imbalanced state, everything is settled down. So he is satisfied within itself. And that is, he is said to be one of steady wisdom. That is the symptom, yes.
Swamiji, if this is a dream, like an eternal dream, so this contentment is also in the dream. So that cannot also be true.
That is what always I say, there is no if and but in the question. When you put a question, you have to ascertain what are you going to question.
This is a long dream. So the
This is a long dream.
contentment is also in the
Yes,
dream.
yes, yes. There is no mind, there is no self, there is no perception, there is no enjoyment, no action, no reaction, nothing is there. So matter ends there. Why then if or but? Now we have accepted this. दिल गलती कर बैठा है, गलती कर बैठा है दिल. Yes, Swami ji.
Swamiji, if we keep on logical and analytical point of view in relativity, because, if we say that, yes, Swamiji said, like, if senses meet senses and let them do whatever will, is just one part of the logic. And other says, self is satisfied with the self and that person is. So it is like in a circle, two half of a hemisphere. So how do we know which one is doing for which? It can be also a ulta from other side. It is can be a trick also, like a trick, like a coin. If it puts, it can be in the head and it can be a tail as well. How do we know, like logically and analytically? How do we know? Yes, no, we are not the senses, or no, it is not right way.
Now I told about the contentment,
Yes.
satisfaction.
Yes.
That is what is said. The self is satisfied fully with self, in the self, by the self. Okay? How to understand it is satisfied? This is the question. So, when you are eating, do we need any proof that you are satisfied with the food? Is there any proof needed? How do you know it? It is automatic. That's why he said the satisfaction by the self, in the self, by in itself. The self knows it is satisfied. There is no proof needed. Just as you do everything and you stop it at a time, there is some limit of doing everything. You walk and you stop it sometime. You speak and you stop it sometime. You cannot talk continuously. You cannot walk continuously. Whatever you do, you stop it at some time, at some end. It has got end. Why it has got end? When there is satisfaction, then only there is an end. See this point. When there is satisfaction, contentment, then it ends. That is called completeness. Contentment, satisfaction. Okay? Now, it knows by itself. How do you know? There is no such question. That's how he has said. The self knows by the self. The knowledge is by the knowledge. There is no other than the knowledge to prove that it is knowledge.
So if we say then logically in relativity, so the action, the previous action when compared and right now the action is compared after the satisfaction of the self with the self. Both the actions would be the same, yet this action will not have any kind of attachment towards the action.
Yes. No attachment. And it will be just like dream walk or sleep walk or drowsy eating and talking in the dream. All these are meaningless, and it happens sometimes due to some reason which is not certain. Sometimes it happens like that because of its tendency before it had. So because of that tendency, I give the example, always the twilight or the stoppage of the car after putting brake. When you lose the brake, the vehicle moves for a moment. For a while it goes on rolling without any fuel, without any purpose. It moves for a moment. That is because of the tendency which was beforehand. Similarly, these senses, because they were habituated to do something, it goes on, they go on doing something without any purpose because of the previous tendency. It will go on meaninglessly. We don't want it, yet it goes on. Why did you put the brake? Because you want to stop there. But when you lose the brake, the car has to move a little ahead. That is because of previous tendency.
So
The push.
So that's when the morning class, when Swamiji was sharing, Swamiji was saying the subtle body is attached towards the gross body because of long
Attachment.
attachment.
Yes.
So in that case, should we understand that after the satisfaction of self with the self, yet the action will continue as long as the physical body is there?
Yes. The senses, they work purposelessly, meaninglessly because of previous momentum is working. It has got no purpose. It is resultless, meaningless, purposeless. So no result of course. And there is a desire is not there for the result. So it cannot go on with it for long.
So logically, after the decomposition of the cross body, so then it will not further act, or still the tendency will be there?
The tendency will go for a long time, for a certain time, and by the way, in the meanwhile, if it creates another body, the soul creates another body, then again attachment strengthens. So in that way the rebirth goes on, birth and death, birth and death, birth and death, because of attachment. When the attachment is going to weaken, then it is strengthened. It is never stopped. That is what I was telling. When as long as the chitta, the subconscious mind will be there, till then this birth and death, it will go on endlessly. So the seed should be fried or should be burnt into ashes by the fire of knowledge. Then only you can go beyond the cycle of birth and death, or else it cannot be discontinued, you cannot go out of it. That is what I was explaining, what happens to the soul after death. Attachment, how attachment works. When it is weakened a little, then again you put fuel to it. You go on putting fuel into the engine again and again. So as long as you like, you can drive the car. If fuel is stopped totally, fuel is here, anna, food, and food gives energy to the prana, vital energy to activate, and vital energy gives energy to the mind to activate. In this way the cycle goes on. So, never ending cycle.
So if we keep the Swamiji's 360-degree logic and 10 to the power of further 10, if we keep, so in that case the power controlling the intelligence or intelligence controlling the prana.
Both, vice versa. It is a cooperative society. Don't forget it. Triangular cooperative society. So now, what will be the condition? This we have seen yesterday. Now, dukkhesu anudvignamanaha sukhesu vigata spriya बीत राग भय क्रोध स्थिता धीर मुनि उच्यते. He whose mind is not shaken by adversities, who does not hanker for the sensual pleasures and is free from attachment. Now we were talking of attachment. A sage of steady wisdom is called, it is called a sage of steady wisdom, Sitadhi. The mind of a sage, of a steady wisdom, is not distressed in calamities. Calamities we have seen yesterday, three kinds of tapas, three tapas, आधी दैविक, आधी भौतिक, and आध्यात्मिक. So, आधी दैविक, दैव is taken as the nature, natural calamities, and आधी भौतिक, bhut means all these different beings other than you, they also create adversities in your lives. Go. And adhyatmic, Atma is taken as the body here. So body, diseasedness, diseases. All these three type of disorders or calamities, when occur, then what happens? He is not perturbed by it because his mind is steadied on the self, so he doesn't care for all these adversities and it has got no influence over him. And from other angle, he has practiced titiksha for a long time. So all these pain and pleasures cannot affect him. So in that way, the mind is steadied. Okay? And we have seen these three negative qualities: Rag, Bhay and Krodh. Yesterday we have discussed on it. Rag, attachment. We understood a little about attachment, how the attachment develops by repetition, by repeated association with the sense objects, by the senses, and then Bhaya, where there is dualism, there will be certainly fear and also anger when the desires are not satisfied. We have desires. When there is obstruction in fulfillment of the desires, because we feel incomplete. If there is some obstruction in completeness, means fulfilling the desires, so-called desires, then naturally there will be friction, and friction is called anger. It is a natural process and negative quality. These three are very dangerous. So, when the mind is steadied, all these three negative qualities are rooted out by themselves. They cannot raise their heads. And these are the obstacles in the path of spirituality. And Sukhesu vigata spriya, dukkhesu anudvigna mana. Yesterday we have seen he is never perturbed in the sorrows, unhappiness, mishaps, and he is not overwhelmed by achievement of something, worldly achievements. He knows all these are useless, only mental state. Now mind has no state. It has been steadied in the self. So the mind has become no mind. So all these pain and pleasure or disturbance or overwhelmness or these attachment, fear and anger, they have no place here. Such person is called a man of steady wisdom. Now we shall go further a little. Yaha sarvatra anabhisneha tat tat prapya sugha subham nabhi nandati nadvesti tasya pragyam pratisthita. Whatever we have discussed, it is confirmed or it is ascertained in a way. This shloka, he says, Lord Krishna ascertains, he who is everywhere without attachment on meeting with anything good or bad. He has got no attachment in meeting anything good or bad, who neither rejoices nor hates, his wisdom is fixed. Attachment gives us a kind of momentary pleasure, and detachment, worldly detachment means when we don't get the object, that is obstruction in attachment naturally creates a hatred, isn't it? A person who helps us to have our desires fulfilled, naturally we think him to be a friend. A friend in need is a friend indeed. It is in only parlance only. Need means when he helps us in the need. So he is called a friend, and when you are with the friend, you are happy, you don't hate your friend. And one who brings obstructions to fulfill your desires, he is your enemy. So naturally there is hatred, rejecting him. So this friendship and enmity, love and hatred, these two also, these pairs of opposites, this is also very, very dangerous. When you will have friendship, love for someone, naturally there will be attachment. That attachment, of course, it has got different degrees in different ways. And hatred also. In one sense, hatred is good for us. In what sense? Hatred towards the sense objects, that will bring us dispassion, isn't it? So, of course, but there should not be any hatred, but there should be indifference. That is better than hatred. To have indifference, you can easily have dispassion, vairagya. Because you know it is not useful. So a kind of natural indifference, neutral, to be neutral. And as such, you will not have love nor hatred, both. When you are indifferent, when you are neutral, then there is neither hatred nor love for anything. Such a person's mind becomes steady because is neither this side nor that side. LOC. LOC. He is neither that side nor this side, he is in the border. That is called neutral zone. Neutral zone. And that neutral zone is known as indifferent towards everything. So such a person's mind is established in self. So he is called a man of wisdom. He has overcome all these pairs of opposites. The sage possesses poised understanding or evenness of mind. He does not rejoice in the pleasure, nor is he averse to pain, and that may befall in him whatever unwanted situation. He is not perturbed by it. He is quite indifferent. That is what I was telling you. Indifference. He is totally indifferent as he has rooted in this self. He has no attachment even for his life or body, as he identifies himself with the Brahman or the Supreme Self. He will not poise, he will not praise anybody, nor he will abuse anybody. He has no friend, he has no enemy. So if this is the condition, this is the answer given by the Lord to Arjuna's query. How does a sage of steady mind talk? Neither he will praise anyone, nor he will censure anyone. He will not discourage or find fault with anyone. He will not abuse anyone. But he will talk indifferently without all these partialities. He may talk. There is no force on him not to talk, because your mind is steadied on the self, so you cannot talk. That is not this case. He talks, but indifferently. And that was how for such a realized soul, it is seen, it is said also, he talks very little only when some sincere seekers need some help in the spiritual path. Out of his experience, he expresses few words which works a great deal, helps a lot. This is how Lord Krishna has given few words, and it is guiding the whole world, not only Arjuna. So tomorrow we shall see the next. Now I was thinking of going little in elaborate way. Tomorrow we shall see. We shall see this, how this man of wisdom behaves. Of course, Lord Krishna has given some point-wise answers. Tomorrow we shall see Yada Sangharate Chayam Kurmangani Sarvasaha Indriyani Indriyarthevya Stasya Prajna Pratisthita. And he gives the example of the tortoise, Kurma, and we shall see it tomorrow nicely. Hari Om. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadguru Bhagavan ki jai. Satchidananda Bhagavan ki jai. Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. Gita Mata ki jai. Hari Om.